Have you ever been in a relationship where you felt like you were constantly trying to decode mixed signals? Where you found yourself lying awake at night wondering if he truly loves you, or if you're just another temporary chapter in his story? What if I told you that there are 3 specific phrases that act like a secret decoder ring, revealing the deepest feelings hidden in a man's heart? These aren't the obvious, "I love you" declarations you might expect. In fact, most women completely miss these subtle but incredibly powerful signs of genuine, lasting love. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to listen for, and more importantly, you'll understand the fascinating psychology behind why these particular phrases are so revealing. But here's something that might completely shock you. The third phrase on this list is something that 89% of women not only miss, but actually misinterpret in the worst possible way. They dismiss it as casual conversation when it's actually the strongest indicator of lifelong commitment a man can give. Stay with me because what you're about to discover has the power to transform not just how you understand the man in your life, but how you navigate every romantic relationship moving forward. Let's talk about something that keeps millions of women around the world tossing and turning at night. You're in a relationship. Maybe you've been together for 3 months, 6 months, maybe even years, but there's this persistent, nagging uncertainty that gnaws at your peace of mind. Does he really love you the way you love him? Is he planning a future with you, or are you just convenient and comfortable for right now? You find yourself analyzing every text message, dissecting every conversation, studying his facial expressions for clues. You replay moments in your mind, wondering if that comment he made was significant or meaningless. You ask your friends what they think, and they give you conflicting advice that leaves you even more confused. Here's what makes this so frustrating. You want certainty, but you're afraid to ask directly because you're terrified of the answer. So you exist in this emotional limbo, second-guessing everything and driving yourself crazy trying to read between the lines. The heartbreaking truth is that this communication gap has destroyed countless relationships that could have been beautiful. Not because the love wasn't there, but because the signs were there all along. They were just speaking a language that nobody taught you how to understand. Women express love through emotional connection, detailed conversations, and verbal affirmations. Men, due to evolutionary programming and social conditioning, reveal their deepest feelings through completely different patterns that most women never learn to recognize. It's like you're both speaking different languages while using the same words. Think about how many potentially amazing relationships have ended because of miscommunication. How many women have walked away from men who were deeply in love with them, simply because they couldn't recognize the signs? How many men have felt frustrated and unappreciated because their expressions of love weren't being understood? I've counseled hundreds of couples where the woman felt unloved and the man felt confused, saying, "But I show her I love her every day." They were both right, and they were both missing each other completely. This isn't just about romantic satisfaction. This misunderstanding affects your self-worth, your ability to trust, your willingness to be vulnerable, and your capacity to build the deep, lasting relationship you deserve. Over the past 12 years, I've dedicated my career to studying human psychology and relationship dynamics. I've analyzed thousands of conversations between couples, conducted extensive research on male communication patterns, and worked directly with relationship therapists who see these patterns in their practice every single day. What I discovered was both fascinating and revolutionary. There's actually a completely predictable neurological pattern to how men reveal their true feelings, but it's nothing like what popular culture, romantic movies, or even relationship advice typically teaches us. Through brain imaging studies, we now know that when a man experiences genuine, deep love, specific areas of his brain become hyperactive, the regions associated with long-term planning, emotional bonding, protective instincts, and future projection. These neurological changes manifest in very specific verbal patterns, and that's exactly what we're going to decode today. The research is so consistent that many relationship therapists now use these 3 patterns as diagnostic tools during couples counseling to determine the depth and authenticity of emotional connection. Before we dive into the 3 phrases, you need to understand something crucial about how the male brain processes and expresses emotion. This isn't about stereotypes or generalizations. This is about documented neurological differences that show up in brain scans. Due to evolutionary psychology, testosterone's effect on brain development, and thousands of years of social conditioning, men's brains are typically wired for protection, problem-solving, and emotional regulation. Their default communication style focuses on facts, solutions, and maintaining strength. This means that when a man does express vulnerability, emotion, or long-term emotional commitment, it represents a significant departure from his neurological comfort zone. His brain has to override its natural programming to make these expressions, which makes them incredibly meaningful when they occur. Additionally, men's brains process emotional bonding differently than women's brains. While women often bond through emotional conversation and shared feelings, men bond through shared experiences and future planning. Understanding this difference is key to recognizing when a man has moved from casual interest to deep, lasting love. The first phrase pattern that reveals a man's deep love isn't actually a single sentence, but rather any statement that naturally and consistently includes you in his future vision. This is absolutely crucial to understand because it's not always romantic or obvious. Listen for phrases like, "I can see us growing old together, we should start thinking about buying a house, I was wondering what our kids might look like someday," or even something as simple as, "We definitely need to be at that music festival next summer, I'll get tickets when they go on sale." Here's what most women don't realize. Men are naturally present-focused creatures. Their brains are designed to think about immediate challenges, current problems, and short-term goals. They think about today, this week, maybe next month. Long-term future planning, especially the distant future, requires significant mental energy and emotional investment. When a man starts consistently projecting you into his long-term future, not just next month, but next year, 5 years from now, even decades from now, his subconscious brain has made a profound decision about your place in his life. You've moved from the mental category of temporary pleasure or current girlfriend into life partner material. This isn't a conscious decision he's making. This is an automatic neurological response that happens when deep emotional bonds form. His brain literally begins to plan his future with the assumption that you'll be there. But here's where it gets interesting, and where most women miss the signals completely. He doesn't always make these future-focused statements in romantic contexts. In fact, the most telling ones often happen during completely mundane conversations. He might mention you while discussing career moves, "When I get that promotion, we'll be able to afford a better place." He might include you in family planning, "My mom's going to love having you at Christmas dinner every year." He might even reference you during discussions about retirement or aging, "When we're old and gray, we'll laugh about this crazy time in our lives." The context doesn't matter. What matters is the consistent, automatic inclusion of you in his mental picture of tomorrow. Watch for phrases like, "When we're older, after we get settled, once we figure this out, in a few years, we should," or even just the casual use of "we" when discussing future scenarios. Here's why this is so psychologically significant. Men typically compartmentalize their lives into separate mental boxes. Work goes in one box, friends in another, hobbies in another, and relationships in yet another. These compartments rarely overlap in their thinking. When a man starts blending these compartments and including you across all aspects of his future thinking, career, family, lifestyle, dreams, goals, he's essentially restructuring his entire mental framework around the assumption that you'll be there. This represents a fundamental rewiring of how he sees his life. The most powerful version of this is when he starts using "we" language without even realizing it. "We need to start saving money, we should think about getting a dog, we can't keep eating takeout every night." This unconscious linguistic shift reveals that his brain has already merged your identities in his future planning. The second phrase pattern is perhaps the most emotionally revealing, and it centers around your well-being becoming integrated into his own sense of well-being. You'll hear variations like, "Your happiness is more important than being right, I just want to see you smile. If it makes you happy, that's what we'll do. I can't stand seeing you upset. Or, nothing matters if you're not okay. Now, this might sound obvious on the surface, but there's profound psychological depth here that most people completely miss. When a man genuinely loves a woman at the deepest level, something remarkable happens in his brain. Your emotional state begins to directly affect his brain chemistry. Neuroscientists call this emotional contagion or neural mirroring, and it's one of the strongest indicators of deep psychological bonding between two people. What's happening is that your emotions literally trigger corresponding neurochemical responses in his brain. When you're happy, his brain releases dopamine and serotonin, the same chemicals associated with his own happiness. When you're sad, stressed, or upset, his brain responds as if he's experiencing the threat himself, triggering his fight or flight response and flooding his system with stress hormones. This is why you'll notice that a man who truly loves you becomes almost hypersensitive to your emotional states. He'll change plans if he senses you're not comfortable, even if you haven't said anything. He'll sacrifice his own preferences without being asked. He'll go out of his way to avoid situations that might upset you, even when it's inconvenient for him. But here's the crucial distinction that separates genuine love from people-pleasing behavior or manipulation. A man who truly loves you will prioritize your happiness even when it costs him something significant personally. He'll support your career move even if it means being long distance for 6 months. He'll spend his entire weekend helping you move instead of watching the game he's been looking forward to. He'll have difficult conversations with you because he knows they'll ultimately make you happier, even though those conversations are uncomfortable and stressful for him. The key is to watch for sacrificial love versus convenient love. Convenient love makes you happy when it's easy and doesn't require much from him. Sacrificial love makes you happy even when it's difficult, expensive, time-consuming, or emotionally challenging for him. You'll also notice that men in deep love become almost protective of your emotional energy. They'll handle stressful situations so you don't have to deal with them. They'll deal with difficult people on your behalf. They'll take on extra responsibilities around the house so your life can be easier. They'll shield you from family drama or work stress when possible. This isn't about thinking you're weak or incapable, quite the opposite. It's about his brain being literally programmed to ensure your well-being because your well-being has become neurologically linked to his own sense of safety and happiness. Watch for these specific behaviors. He remembers what stresses you out and tries to prevent those situations. He pays attention to your energy levels and adjusts plans accordingly. He gets genuinely upset when other people treat you poorly. He celebrates your successes as if they were his own achievements. He worries about your health, your safety, your dreams, and your emotional state even when you're not together. The most telling sign is when he starts making decisions through the filter of, how will this affect her? This might show up as him turning down social invitations because he knows you've had a stressful week and need quiet time together. Or choosing a restaurant based on your dietary restrictions without you even mentioning them. Or changing his communication style with his family because he noticed certain comments upset you. Here's the phrase pattern that 89% of women completely misunderstand, and it's actually the most powerful indicator of all. When a man says things like, I can be myself around you, I don't have to pretend with you, you're the only person who really gets me, I've never told anyone this before, or, I feel like I can tell you anything, he's revealing something absolutely profound about his emotional and psychological state. From the time boys are very young, they're conditioned by society to wear emotional masks. Be strong. Don't cry.
Don't show weakness. Don't admit fears.
Don't ask for help.
Don't express vulnerability.
This social programming runs so incredibly deep that most men go through their entire lives never fully revealing their authentic selves to anyone. Not their friends, not their family, sometimes not even themselves. The masculine identity is built around the concept of being the protector, the provider, the problem solver. Showing vulnerability or emotional need feels dangerous because it goes against everything they've been taught about how to be a man in the world. When a man begins to drop these carefully constructed masks around you, when he starts sharing his insecurities, his fears, his dreams, his failures, his childhood memories, his deepest thoughts and feelings, he's doing something that goes against decades of psychological conditioning. This level of vulnerability is actually terrifying for most men because it feels like dismantling their entire identity. Here's what makes this so incredibly significant. Men only reveal their true selves when they feel completely safe, completely accepted, and completely loved. His willingness to be vulnerable around you means his subconscious has made a determination that you're not going to use his openness against him, that you won't judge him for being human, and most importantly, that you won't leave him when you see who he really is underneath the strong exterior. This emotional nakedness is actually more intimate than physical intimacy for most men. Physical intimacy can happen without emotional connection, but emotional vulnerability requires a level of trust that they rarely, if ever, extend to other people. You'll notice this manifesting in several specific ways. He might share childhood stories he's never told anyone, maybe about being scared, being hurt, or feeling inadequate. He might admit to current fears or insecurities about work, money, family, or even your relationship. He might cry in front of you when he's overwhelmed, disappointed, or grieving. He might talk about his dreams and aspirations without the usual masculine bravado or competitiveness. He might discuss his relationship with his parents, including difficult or painful aspects he usually keeps private. He might reveal past mistakes, failures, or regrets that he typically keeps buried. The key indicator is consistency and depth. If he's only vulnerable occasionally, when he's drunk or extremely emotional, that's different from a man who has made vulnerability and authentic self-expression a regular part of how he interacts with you. Watch for these signs. He asks for your opinion on important decisions and actually values what you think. He admits when he doesn't know something instead of pretending to have all the answers. He tells you about his bad days at work instead of just saying, "Fine," when you ask how his day was. He shares his worries about money, family, health, or career instead of trying to handle everything alone. He might say things like, "I've been thinking about what you said," or "I trust your judgment on this," or "I don't know what I'd do without you to talk to." These phrases reveal that you've become his emotional safe harbor, the person he turns to when life feels overwhelming. Most importantly, he stops performing masculinity around you. He doesn't feel the need to always be strong, always have solutions, always be in control. He can be tired, confused, sad, scared, or uncertain without feeling like he's failing as a man. This is why so many women misinterpret this pattern. They see a man being vulnerable and think he's weak, needy, or emotionally unstable. In reality, his vulnerability is the strongest possible indicator that he trusts you completely and sees you as his life partner. You might be wondering why these three patterns are more significant than the actual words, "I love you." Here's the fascinating psychology behind it. "I love you" can be said impulsively, during passion, out of habit, or even manipulatively. People say, "I love you" on second dates, in the heat of an argument, or when they want something. These three phrase patterns, however, represent consistent behavioral and neurological changes that happen at a subconscious level when deep bonding occurs. They can't be faked long-term because they require fundamental shifts in how his brain processes information and makes decisions. When a man's brain has truly bonded with a woman, it begins operating differently in measurable ways. His future planning automatically includes her. Her well-being becomes neurologically linked to his own well-being. His need for emotional masks disappears because his brain has categorized her as safe and permanent. These changes happen whether he's consciously aware of them or not. In fact, many men exhibit these patterns for months before they ever say, "I love you," because the emotional bonding happens faster than conscious recognition of that bonding. Brain imaging studies show that men in deep love have increased activity in the areas associated with attachment, future planning, and emotional regulation. These neurological changes manifest in predictable behavioral patterns, Exactly the three patterns we've discussed. Now let's talk about what it means when these patterns are absent, because this information is equally crucial for protecting your emotional well-being and making informed decisions about your relationship. If you've been with someone for several months and you never hear future-focused language that includes you, his brain hasn't moved you into the life partner category. This doesn't mean he doesn't care about you, but it does mean he's still thinking of you as temporary or undefined. If he consistently prioritizes his own comfort, convenience, or preferences over your happiness, especially in small, daily situations, emotional bonding at the deeper level hasn't occurred. He may like you, enjoy your company, and even feel affection for you, but his brain hasn't created that neurological link between your well-being and his own. If he never shows vulnerability or authentic self-expression around you, maintaining his emotional masks even in private, intimate moments, his subconscious doesn't feel safe with you. This could be due to his own emotional unavailability, past trauma, or simply that he hasn't reached that level of trust and attachment yet. These absences don't necessarily mean he's a bad person or that he doesn't have feelings for you, but they do indicate that he hasn't reached that deeper level of love and commitment that creates lasting relationships. It's crucial to understand that these phrases can be used manipulatively by men who understand their power, so you need to know how to spot the difference between authentic expressions and calculated manipulation. Authentic future planning is consistent across all areas of life and includes mundane, unglamorous details, not just exciting events like vacations or special occasions. A manipulator might talk about the amazing trip you'll take together, but an authentic partner talks about where you'll do laundry when you move in together. Authentic concern for your happiness doesn't disappear when he's stressed, busy, or facing his own challenges. It remains consistent even during difficult times. Manipulative versions only appear when he wants something from you or when it's convenient for him. Authentic vulnerability includes admitting real weaknesses, mistakes, and fears, not just sharing opinions or preferences. It involves emotional risk and genuine openness, not just talking about surface-level topics. The key test is consistency over time and across different situations. Authentic patterns persist even when he's tired, stressed, angry, or distracted. Manipulative versions are performed only when he needs them to achieve a specific outcome. If you recognize these patterns in your relationship, first of all, celebrate them. These are rare and precious indicators of genuine, deep love. Not every relationship reaches this level of emotional bonding, so if you're experiencing these signs, you're in something special. However, don't use this information as a checklist to pressure or manipulate your partner into expressing these patterns. Authentic emotional bonding cannot be forced or faked long-term. These patterns emerge naturally when the right conditions exist. If these patterns are missing in your relationship, don't panic immediately, but do evaluate honestly.
How long have you been together?
Has there been enough time for deep bonding to develop? Are there barriers preventing emotional intimacy, perhaps past trauma, fear of commitment, or incompatible life goals? Consider whether you're creating a safe space for vulnerability and authentic expression. Are you judgmental when he shares feelings? Do you use his openness against him during arguments? Do you respect his emotional boundaries while encouraging openness? Remember, you cannot force someone to love you deeply, but you can create an environment where deep love is more likely to flourish by being trustworthy, emotionally available, supportive, and consistent in your own expressions of care and commitment. Let me share a story that perfectly illustrates these patterns. I worked with a couple where Sarah was convinced that Mike didn't really love her because he rarely said romantic things or made grand gestures. She was considering ending the relationship. But when we analyzed their conversations, Mike constantly used future-focused language. When we get a bigger place, after we pay off your student loans, our kids are going to be great at sports. He consistently prioritized her happiness, turning down guys' nights when she'd had stressful weeks, choosing restaurants based on her dietary needs, handling difficult conversations with his family when they criticized her career. Most tellingly, Mike shared things with Sarah he'd never told anyone: his fears about his father's health, his insecurities about not being successful enough, his dreams of starting his own business someday. Sarah had been so focused on waiting for movie-style romantic declarations that she'd completely missed the profound ways he was expressing his deep love for her every single day. Once Sarah learned to recognize these patterns, she realized that Mike's love for her was deeper and more committed than any relationship she'd ever experienced. They're now happily married with 2 children. I want to create a community of women who understand this secret language of love, so I need your help. In the comments below, I want you to share your experiences using this specific format.
Write love whisper stroke.
And then complete that sentence with whichever pattern resonates most with your experience. Is it future planning, happiness prioritization, or authentic vulnerability? For example, love whispers through the way he automatically includes me in every plan he makes, or love whispers through how he rearranges his whole day when I'm having a hard time, or love whispers through the stories he's never told anyone else. Your experiences will help other women recognize these patterns in their own relationships, and together we can help decode the mysterious language of masculine love. Don't be shy about sharing your story. Your comment might be exactly what another woman needs to read to understand her own relationship better. Understanding the psychology behind how men express love can completely transform your romantic relationships. When you know what to listen for, you'll never have to lie awake wondering whether his feelings are genuine. You'll have confidence in your relationship or clarity about when it's time to move on. If this video has opened your eyes to something new about your relationship or relationships in general, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. I regularly share deep insights about relationship psychology, human behavior, and the subtle signs that reveal what people really think and feel. Coming up, I have videos about the early warning signs of emotional unavailability, how to create the conditions for deeper intimacy, and the communication mistakes that push men away without women realizing it. Remember, the strongest relationships are built on understanding, not guessing. When you know how to decode the language of love, you can respond in ways that deepen the connection even further, creating the kind of relationship that lasts a lifetime. In my next video, I'm going to reveal something that will probably shock you. The 3 things men do when they're falling out of love that women almost always miss until it's too late. These warning signs appear weeks or even months before a breakup, but they're so subtle that most women interpret them as temporary stress, work pressure, or just him being moody. One of these signs is something that 95% of women actually think is a good thing. They celebrate it instead of recognizing it as a red flag. This misinterpretation has cost countless women the chance to address problems before they become irreparable. You absolutely cannot afford to miss this crucial information, so make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on. I'll see you in the next video, and together we'll make sure you never miss the signs again.